Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brainwash Yourself, the podcast that explores the mystical and the practical art of reprogramming the subconscious mind and all things metaphysical, all things magical, all things practical for living our best, most juicy, most delicious, fulfilling lives. So we're so glad you're here. My name is Anneka. This is my lovely co-host, Calista.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
And we're so excited to be here for an exclusive energy update. And this is perfect timing because this episode is going to come out in just a handful of days. And the energy is really potent and powerful right now. Calista and I have been talking about how it's almost like you can feel it in the air, kind of like in electricity is how I would put it. And I think the last time we were feeling this was like maybe around the Lionsgate portal in August. At least for me, that's when I remember it. But it's a potent and it's a powerful time. So we're feeling the vibes. We hope you're feeling the vibes, and we're here to break down the vibes in this week's energy update.
Yes. Okay, so I have to say a lot of the energy update is inspired by different energy updates and themes that we notice in our own experience, cosmic themes, collective themes possibly, and we kind of synthesize them, share them to the sub club so you guys can have another perspective on what's going on, maybe hopefully be supported by the energy update. So, without further ado, grand context. If you've heard our previous energy updates, our most recent one was during, I think, Lionsgate portal type of area, energy-wise. And
yes, you're right. I forgot about that.
Sometimes the energy could just get so high that we're just like, we gotta update the sub club. They gotta be prepared on how to handle this influx of like photonic light, geomagnetic weather from the sun, so much energy to be incorporated, increasing, almost like reaching a peak, some would say. I love Marissa Indigo. I love her energy updates. She talks about and references the solar weather a lot, and we might get symptoms, ascension symptoms. That is one point of this energy update. So all this photonic light coming in, increasing energy, being integrated into the body, it can be a lot for the system to handle. If your body as an instrument, and we'll talk about this, if your body as an instrument can handle a lot of spiritual energy, photonic light, then you can harness it for your desires. But depending on how much energy our body has the capacity to use to our benefit, it's kind of like all this energy can fry us a little bit. And so the physical body, that's another main point of the energy update. So another teacher that I love, Miriam Hess-Nash, she has said in the past that like our spirit is renting and borrowing our physical body from the earth. And the earth, conscious, Gaia, living, multidimensional being, is a major co-creator on our journey as humans, and our body is a huge part of that. And our spirit and our mental situation aside, all this photonic light and all this, whether it be geomagnetic energy, artificial electricity, whether people are having like a spiritual awakening that can be like caused by these things, but there can just be like some reason because of you opening up different blockages that you have a huge increase of energy in your system. And I feel like it's really common and happening a lot right now, which is like the context of the whole energy update in general, and even ones we've done in the past, is like, okay, all this energy coming in from every direction. so what? Like, what is the impacts?
I really love where you're going with this. It's all about, it's not necessarily good or bad, but it's there for us to utilize to the best of our ability. And oftentimes that starts with awareness. You're aware there's a huge influx of energy that's going on, you know, whether you feel it or you hear about it. And then next, it's assessing how you can best support yourself to be able to integrate this energy, integrate these codes, or just not get lost in it. It depends on what your goal is. If your goal is just to like feel good and show up to your day-to-day, then these grounding and strengthening tools, whatever you choose, can help you in that. If it's to actually open up and assimilate more of the energy, you can adjust in that way. But I think Calista's really hitting the nail on the head that, you know, it's how much energy am I capable of processing and assimilating and using for my own desires, my own creations, my own projections. Because if this energy is coming in and we have the capacity to receive it, to not, you know, like not get swayed by it, not get fried by it, and then like direct it. So receive it, integrate it, and then consciously direct it in a way that we want to, then that can be really powerful and it can be really fun. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity that we're in right now. So we're excited to get into the tips and tricks in a little bit. I'll let Calista finish about the energetics, but these things are so fun because it's like, this isn't the only high energy time we're gonna have. I think they're all unique in a very specific and interesting way because the alignment of the planets and the stars is never exactly the same. You know, the way the energy is hitting is never gonna be quite exactly the same. So like maybe the imprint we can receive at this moment in time is unique and special, and we can take that opportunity and then also know that there will continue to be these kinds of opportunities of different flavors, of different expressions, and we can take the tools that we have, continue to add to our tool belt, and continue to use as these events potentially even become more and more common as we accelerate in our evolution of consciousness on this planet together. So I'll let you continue on with where the energies are at right now.
I love it. Okay, when it comes to integrating these high energies, it's all about stabilizing, centering, something that has been coming into my awareness a lot from like Marissa Indigo and this subliminal maker, Dr. Virtual 7, is the idea of the 0 point and even being in service to your body as it integrates the photonic light. The integration of all these spiritual accelerations that we've been experiencing and talked about in the previous energy updates, just like really the body coming into the 5D, like we talked about in the 5D episode. And you know, the body up to a point is in the 3D. It's very physical. And even this other energy update type media podcast that we listen to by Christina, the channel, and then also there's Lumiere, another great subliminal maker, this idea that many people have talked about of the crystalline light body and this carbon-based 3D light body, and then crystalline silica-based light body that is coming with us into the 5D, and I think also beyond. And so we had and still are having possibly these emotional purges, these mental breakthroughs, like spiritual accelerations, and it's like the body is not left behind, and like the body is something that is also like getting up to these speeds as well, and that is a hugely beneficial place for our energy to be going, in my opinion, is like towards that transformation and possibly for many of us, it will take a lot of energy. And when it comes to prioritizing the body's needs, resting, hydrating, nourishing your body with nutrients and just clean air, getting out in nature and taking a break from stimulation as much as you can, like whether it be stillness, whether it be movement, there's always like the balance and the polarity. But I think when it comes to the stabilizing and the centering, so much of it is in the body. And I think a huge part of it for me is just like listening to the body, feeling the body, and then prioritizing what my body's asking for. Because it's like that idea that we mentioned at the beginning where my spirit is borrowing my body from the earth. And so it's like not just my object to use as I please. Like this is a relationship where it needs to be interdependent, and like my consciousness needs to have a level of respect for the body. I think that's very major right now. And like people will say the body mind as like one word. The body mind, like that's another major theme, like not being too in the head, stabilizing, centering, like when so much is going on, just like coming back to that 0 point and landing. That's another thing. So Marissa Indigo, in one of her recent energy updates, she mentioned the theme of landing, and I was like, wait, we need to tell the sub club just like we had to tell you guys when we were entering the 5D, because we're keeping our hands and arms in until we're safely docked in our castle subship port on heaven on earth. And it's like some people equate the 5D and heaven on earth. And so it's like when we were coming into the 5D, we were like, we need to update the sub club because this is like a major landmark on our journey. And now it is time to, you know, put the tray tables up, everything like that. Like this is something that we need to announce to you guys as your subship captains. So we're landing. Still got to keep your hands and arms in because we need to navigate to our castle subship ports.
And the landing is the most important part, you know, like you gotta stick the landing.
Very true. And when it comes to landing in the 5D, landing in heaven on earth, landing in the swan grid, landing in the body, as Marissa Indigo was saying, and then heaven as a state of mind. And it's like you bring in the body mind and landing in the body, landing in heaven on earth, and heaven on earth being a state of body mind that we're landing in. So it is kind of bringing it all together of like the subship is landing in heaven on earth, we're landing in the body because heaven is a state of mind and the body and mind are one. So we're like landing in that state of body mind, which is heaven on earth.
Such good news. And when you think about it, our last episode that we put out was on the holographic reality. And it's almost as if when we land in that heaven on earth state of consciousness, which is a space where the body and mind both are in, and then we walk around in the world vibrating heaven. And the more that we can be that vibration and the more that we can create those waves, the better chance it has to pick up and spread through the entire collective. So I just love this idea because it so coincides. We vibrate that, we receive that back to ourselves through the holographic reality. And that is why they say that this journey that we go on through our own consciousness is kind of just the greatest service that we can do, because we are sharing then the frequency of heaven on earth. That's so amazing. I love that body mind thing too, because it's like sometimes we're already there, we're already in that space, and yet we are so distracted by everything around us, or we're trained to be in that state of to the next thing, or flight, or this has my attention and that has my attention, and kind of just so sucked into the externals. But then we can bring it back to ourselves, and we can really feel like, oh, I'm here, I can enjoy this, I can act from a state of deep presence and trust that like innate flow that comes through when you're like deeply in your body and in your own consciousness, and can actually hear, we've been talking a lot about this, hear what other people are saying, and like be, when you're interacting with other people, or when you're interacting with life, it's like when you're deeply present and you're set and landed into your body mind, that's when you can receive the innate wisdom that comes from being connected to everything in the planet and all other people and all other beings and all other atoms. It's like, if we're really all one, the place that we can tap into that infinite wisdom that knows all, so can make the right moves, that is never in the wrong place at the wrong time, that is always like hearing the cues and the whispers, and just like in the flow with it all. Like that's from being landed. And so it sort of is a practice at first, but that's the whole point of these check-ins and these conversations and these energy updates, because the other thing is that when we're landed, I think we can receive the energy of these potent times much more clearly, because it's almost like energy flows through a clear and calm channel much more easily than something that's like erratic and moving around and pulled in this direction, pulled in that direction. Whereas just coming back to the calm and to the groundedness, it just like opens the channel, it opens the floodgates. And it's in times like these where it's really, it's always really, really potent and always really impactful. But we enjoy when there are these like feeling special moments that feel special in time, because we can double down, we can remember these things, and we can maybe find a little bit of extra inspiration to apply them.
I totally love it. So many gems. There is so much to what you said. I loved what you said about just like this being a good reminder, because it's always a potent time to tune back in. And that's even what Marissa Indigo says, is she's like, just repeat to yourself, into the body, out of the mind, into the body, out of the mind, into the body, out of your mind, and make that your mantra, to the point that like when you're stressed out, you're just thinking to yourself like, into the body, out of the mind. And it's like, I like to think like, okay, what does my pinky toes feel like right now? Or like stuff like that gets you like way down into your body. And presence. That was another major thing we've been talking about lately. And we were talking about like being organized is so major, being focused, being energized. And we were talking about like, it doesn't matter what you want to succeed at. It doesn't matter like what you want. Like, don't put your effort towards that. Put your energy towards cultivating your ability to focus, building your energy levels, and, you know, getting organized, getting your systems in check, because then success is like such a breeze no matter what you're after, because you're like set up and primed for success to like be in your best state. And then we're like, wait, just like Anneka said about being present, listening, and it's like even organization, energy, focus, like that stuff comes from presence. And like just being present in the moment and in the body is just like the ultimate practice to cultivate in life right now for me, I think. So I think that's a major part of the energy update as well. And then I think just a couple last things, like using the tools in general. One thing that's been coming to me lately is like I have so many tools. I can't do them all every day in like a systematic way as much as I would love to. And that's something else that also Marissa Indigo has been saying lately, and more than just her too, is like, in these times, it's not about like thinking and logicking our way to figure out what is going on. It's just something that we have to feel our way through, and that's how it is with the tools. Like, we have so many tools, so just like being present, again, tuning into the moment, and it's like, hey, what is going to support me here? What is going to support my body here? Like, and there's going to be something. So just, yeah, being aware, like Anneka said at the very beginning, being present, being aware, coming into the body, and just like prioritize supporting your body. That is like a major takeaway from the energy update. And then another thing I loved that Marissa Indigo said that was also just coming through a lot for me, she put it like this: the sacred clown. But I have just been noticing like a love of laughter. I love to laugh. And she mentions that as a coping mechanism, like in a recent energy update, and then even in her most recent, she didn't say sacred clown, but she brought it back as like having a joke with her friend to just like put a life jacket on display in her house and just have a little sign next to it that's like, hey, if you're drowning in the energies, remember to put on your life jacket. Just to be silly. There's nothing, there's nothing there. It's just to be silly for fun. Because like that is a medicine. Like, so keep that in mind. Like, and I feel like not even keeping it in mind, but I've just been noticing it coming up and like how silly things can be. And like, yeah, things can be very intense and very high energy and very potent and very spiritual. And that's the other thing, is the need to stabilize and the need to center, because a lot is still coming up, and there can be very chaotic and hectic energies. But really that ability to not take it too serious, be able to laugh at it, be able to just like relax and have fun, in addition to the self-care and like the presence in the body and everything else like we were talking about. Like, I don't know, making a joke, it's quite the art form. Like, so that's a good one to practice at this time. Another thing is, I feel like color frequencies, like these rainbow frequencies, the aquamarine frequencies, and I feel like these emerald frequencies coming in, just something in case that resonates with anyone. Okay, so bringing it all the way back to the very last thing, which is from me, which is the ascension symptoms, like we talked about in the beginning. So there can be so many of them, and like it can be in the physical body, and it can be in the mind. It can be anxiety, being triggered, feeling the heart race, the sleep issues. Like in the Christina the Channel podcast, she describes her experience, which goes far beyond into much more intense realms of, she, for example, mentioned she felt her bones bubbling inside her body. And that was a potent part of the episode that stood out to me in my memory. And so not saying everything is just like an ascension symptom, and it doesn't even really matter. What matters is we are making a playlist for you. And it's an audio playlist to support you in any ascension symptoms you may be feeling. And I love audio. Like we were talking about all these different types of audio, subliminal affirmations, normal affirmations, mantra, whether they be Kundalini mantra, like Hindu mantra or Buddhist chanting, or different frequencies like solfeggio frequencies, the morphic fields, all these things. And I think there's a famous quote, but I actually looked it up and like I couldn't find it, and it's a famous misinformation quote, I think, that's like, oh, the medicine of the future is frequency and sound and vibration. And I relate to that so much, because for me, like, that's what helps me, and that's what is my go-to. Like, when we were so sick with COVID, the thing that helped me the most was playing Rama Dasa, the Kundalini mantra, on loop. And for me, sometimes, like, subliminals, like, when it comes to the ascension symptoms, I have been loving the Dr. Virtual 7 subliminals so much. Like, I'll put it on and just feel it in my body. And I would listen to, you know, different subliminals or morphic fields back when I was sick as well, but I could just feel in my body that the Rama Dasa just like did something to me. So, you know, sound waves are real, vibration is real, your cells are always vibrating, everything is always interacting. We talk about this on the podcast all the time, and these different, specially curated and crafted sound waves interact with your cells in these very potent ways. That's my belief. And also, the placebo effect is also very strong. So, whatever is your flavor. But that will be in the show notes linked below.
Yes, it will. And I would even go as far as to say, not only is everything vibrating, but I would go as far to say it as everything in existence is sound. It's literally like a sound vibration at its like most minute level. I mean, so many cultures, schools of thought knew this. I mean, even in the Bible, which I am not like the most familiar with, it was like at first there was the Word and the Word was God. It's like literally the first instant of creation was sound wave. And so everything is made of sound waves. And that is why sound is not a new age, like, woo-woo technology. It's literally, I truly believe it is the healing technology of not just the future, but I mean now if you want to use it, it's available. It's everywhere. There are so many beautiful, incredible sound healing technologies. And we're all vibrating. Everything in our reality is vibrating. And everything has a sound. You have a sound. You can change your sound. You can tune your sound. You can refine your sound. And Ramadasa, if people are wondering, it's one of the primary healing mantras from, specifically, I've used it or learned about it in the Kundalini Yoga lineage. And there are so many other mantras which are basically really high frequency sound codes that can direct your thought patterns and also bring, you know, different vibrational changes to you and your mind. And as Calista was saying with the body-mind system, they're not separate. So you affect your mind, you're going to affect everything. You affect your body, you're going to affect everything. It's like it's all one system. And so I would say that there are many sound tools that we could offer, have offered, have talked about. One that's been really helpful for me recently is the gong. I think there's so much that I still feel like I have to learn about the gong, but I know that the gong is supposed to be like the sound of creation, and it can have massive power for clearing the mind, healing the mind, completely like cleaning out all subconscious thought forms, and just like really recalibrating the entire system. So when we're inundated with all these frequencies all the time, like let's say we live in a world where there are all of these like mimicked, basically astrological frequencies. It's almost like, I've heard someone describe it, my friend and incredible astrologer Cody Channel has told me basically about how a lot of the frequencies that we have on the planet, from like microwaves to cell towers, like all this stuff, it's kind of like inverted mimics of like solar frequencies, stellar frequencies, and it kind of sometimes I think can make it more difficult for us to like receive these higher frequencies from the stars, from celestial bodies, from the planets, from the sun, from our central sun, and so on. And so that's kind of a more, higher level out there idea. But if you just think about it normally, like we know on a scientific level that like we are affected by microwaves, we are affected by x-rays, we are affected by cell towers. I mean, like me, even when I wear my Bluetooth headphones, like I can literally feel the energy in my ear. And the same with when I hold my phone up to my head. Like it's very palpable. And so having these technologies, these sound technologies in our back pocket, I think is going to become increasingly more important. And it's not only like how we up level, but it's like how we clear and clean our system, have protection, and then also kind of take it to the next level. So I think Gong is like so epic and foundational. Like the other day I was feeling super haywire. It's like good if you're feeling energetically haywire, like mentally really overactive, a lot of overactive mental activity, or just really emotional. I would personally recommend White Sun Gong. Their Gong is so good. There's an album called just White Sun is the band, and the album White Sun Gong, there are like 3 tracks that are like either around 10 minutes or 30 minutes, and oh my gosh, it is such an instantaneous change. I honestly sleep with it on, and we've talked about how when we sleep, our subconscious is the most active, so it's a really good time to have these frequency technologies, whether, Calista has like a layer of like a million masterfully put together, layered on top of each other things.
In the past, I would sleep too.
Yeah.
That I've talked about in this podcast in the past as well, how I made that, but now I actually have a different YouTube playlist that I sleep to.
Yeah.
We could do another protocol update in the future.
For sure. But anyway, for these times, I would highly recommend the Gong. That was like my one point. And then also I just wanted to say, we talked a lot about presence, about being present. How do we be present if, it's not something we've practiced a ton, or we're like a little bit out of practice? It can be going on walks, paying attention to your breath. It could be when you're in conversation with a friend, just like really practicing being in your body and listening. It could be meditating. We bring up over and over again like all the methods that we use for like being able to hold more energy.
3, 2, 1. That's so good for being present. You name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste.
That's fun. I like that tip. And then yeah, gosh, I feel like we mention these things every episode, but like if we're talking about how to hold more energy in our body, like Calista was saying, really taking care of the physical body, mineralizing, sleep, sunlight. Always going to mention Kundalini Yoga because it is an inner energy technology that tunes the body to basically be able to generate more of your own energy, be connected more deeply to your own source energy, and then also just like handle any frequencies that you face with, like more nervous system strength, more energetic strength. And
resting. I feel like resting is a major one. And when I was saying Christina, the channel and her bones bubbling and the ascension system symptoms, I wasn't saying that to freak you out. And never have I experienced my bones bubbling, but my eardrum was kind of vibrating weirdly the other night. But sometimes my mind will just be so chaotic, or I'll just be so tired, but it's like we don't know how much work our body is doing under the surface. So it's not like we should expect such crazy symptoms, but it's like our body is doing a lot of work right now. So just like giving ourselves some grace, especially our body. And it's like, if our body wants to rest, if our body is like showing us some signs and symptoms that like are maybe new to us or confusing, it's like not being like so scared and panicked, but just like listening to the information and just like resting and giving your body what it needs as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then the more your body has what it needs, the easier it is to be present. And then the more present you are, the more easily you can tell what your body needs. And so it's just kind of this like beautiful relay.
And so much changes. That's the other major thing. It's like so much is changing, and there's such almost like a turning point and nothing when it comes to the quantum now moment, that we are going to do an episode on quantum time in the future. When it comes to the crystalline light body transitioning out of like a carbon-based light body, it's like, yes, our body, imagine like your body is tired because it's like re-encoding every single atom from, and every single molecule from being carbon-based to being like this crystalline silica base type thing. And your imagine your DNA is going from the 2-strand DNA to the 12-strand DNA, and your chakra system is going from the 7 chakra system to the 22 chakra system, or whatever it may be. And then we're going into the 7D after the 5D. It's like stay sharp. And then there's the 12D. It's like Anneka and I haven't yet tuned into those energy updates, but we've heard them whispering in the air. Mm-hmm. And we know that the 7D and the 12D is not that far away. So nothing, first of all, like what your body needs in this moment may not be what it was in the past. And what everybody always needed in the past may not be what everybody is always going to need. And if you're really interested in like physical ascension, the crystalline light body and these symptoms, and like to the absolute max, you really should listen to this Christina the Channel episode, because she talks about like this new body reconstruction, and like it was like a baby and all she could eat was milk, like a baby, like milk and honey. And then eventually that phase passed, but it's like, even, it's like change is the only constant. That's another theme that's been coming up a lot, and like staying flexible. It's like what your body needs in the past. It's like be so present in your body and attuning to your body's needs, as if at any moment you could have a completely new body that is going through the growth phases of an infant child, and its needs are changing like just that rapidly, because it could very well be not that far off from what's actually going on.
Amen. I love that. And sometimes we can be a little bit attached to old identities we had, or old ways we used to do things, and it might just be keeping us from like this next like level of blossoming we're meant to be stepped into. So it's definitely a time of experimentation and embracing of newness, and finding like the juice of the unknown, not being afraid to go into the unknown, because we briefly chatted about this in an episode that's coming up a couple weeks after this one, but how the blessing can be often be in the unknown, often be in the discomfort, and like we are on the leading edge of this new age that we're moving into, that many call the Aquarian age. And it has been prophesized that, in this age, things will be speeding up, energies will intensify, and that means that there is a greater polarity of both sides of the spectrum, of both positive and negative, and it's kind of like what we choose to tune into. But it's definitely a time where it's like every tool that resonates you, like you want to be tucking it in your tool belt, practicing it, preparing. It's kind of this idea that you were just talking about, how, and then we're going into the next level, and the next level, it's like, oh my gosh, well, we're always going somewhere. It's like, yeah, we are. And that's why, in Kundalini Yoga, they say like, keep up and you will be kept up. It's kind of like, there always is going to be a next level, and like, I know at some point for me that kind of sounded exhausting, but that's why I think it's important to like have some sort of technology or practice that works for you, that like increases your inner energy over time and your strength as a being on the planet right now, because then it can become more enjoyable to be along for this ride that like really isn't that long, even though sometimes it seems really long when like you're really tired and you don't actually have the energy. And to have that, because eventually it'll get to a space where, you know, it might feel more enjoyable and you actually enjoy that next challenge and the next up level that comes like right around the corner. And when you have more energy, you have more options because you can just see more clearly, and you kind of start to play this game of life on a whole other level.
Yes. And I love also the energy which also comes from another subliminal maker, Maple, of I am my own comfort person. It's you and you. That's another major theme. If things are ever going too fast, take a break, slow down. And it's like, what do you need? Like, don't wait for permission. Like, write yourself the permission slip. Like, what do you want? What do you need? Give it to yourself. Like, be your own comfort person. Be that person to give yourself that experience that will like make you feel good. Because like Anneka's right, like the ride never stops. We're always going to be needing to stabilize, center, recalibrate.
Agreed. And also enjoy it. Totally. Like sometimes it can sound so serious, and I like appreciate that's why you brought up the sacred clown, because like if you are just deep in like, wow, I want to squeeze every last drop out of this life in like deep pleasure and enjoyment, that is so fabulous too. These like whatever tools can just help you to be able to do that more in every moment, regardless of the situation. So there's that. And then I'll just briefly mention that we're in eclipse season. You probably already know if you're listening to Brainwash Yourself podcast, but you actually might not. So on October 25th, 2022, there is going to be a partial solar eclipse in Scorpio, and there will be then a lunar eclipse, a full moon lunar eclipse it's in Taurus, because it's actually this axis, and Taurus and Scorpio oppose each other. And so you can find a ton about this online, but basically eclipses increase the power of the new and full moon, and a lot of times it will be like a very potent like ending and like new beginnings. So like the full moon can often be like a very like sweeping out, close out, and then the new moon can be like a very stark new beginning, because it's like it's not like a slow and steady situation. It's kind of like whoop, like all of a sudden like change in reality. So we just want to put in that idea in everybody's head that like anything is possible, and there is potent transformational energy at our fingertips, and it doesn't even need to be thought too much about if it's not your thing, but we can just be really present to it. And I personally really like eclipse season because I think it just provides energy for things to transform and things to change. And like in my opinion, things are always trying to change for the better and for, you know, the upliftment of everyone ultimately. So when big change is coming, it's a good thing. It's an exciting thing. And this can be a time where if you have Scorpio or you have Taurus in your chart, that is something to pay attention to, maybe even what house it's in, because that could be a theme where a big change and a shift might be happening. And these things are kind of just fun to pay attention to. Like, for example, I have Scorpio and Taurus kind of prominent in both my charts, and like I checked what house both there and what house each of them is in. And I was like, oh, I actually already feel these changes occurring, because it's not something that like, oh, the moment of the eclipse, boom, everything shifts and you're like, whoa, Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz type of vibes. But more so as you get nearer, you can kind of already feel the energies occurring. So you can kind of look at your chart and see where the eclipses are hitting you by just looking at where Scorpio and Taurus are in your chart. And then if you have specific like planets in those spots as well, you might feel it a little bit stronger. Either way, things are happening in the sky, and as above, so below, as within, so without are holographic. And so we look forward to just moving through this experience with as much presence as possible, witnessing what happens, maybe like checking in on the next episode we have to see kind of what changes have occurred. If you want to know anything more about like how it might affect you personally, feel free to reach out. Do you have any final words before we close out this energy update?
Well, I know change can be kind of scary, and change is the only constant. Like, we can't avoid it. But I feel we don't want to lose out on the things like that we enjoy about our life and that like we care about. But it's like we all have things, room for improvements in our life. So if I ever am getting scared of like a big change coming, I just think, okay, like, what is my room for improvements in my life? And just anticipate that the big change is just going to be all those things improving. Like, change really does not have to be bad. So just for my fellow folks who are like healing from anxiety and everything like that, it's just like really coming to trust and have faith that everything is really happening for your highest good. And something I heard is like your intrusive thought and your intuition. First of all, your intuition is never about something that is going to happen in the future. Your intuition is only ever about what's happening right now. And second of all, your intuition always calms you down and never makes you panic. So that's how you tell the difference between your intuition and an intrusive thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. I think that's super, super beautiful. Yay! And how do we tap into our intuition, deep presence? So I think that is the theme almost of like the most thematic tip of this energy update. So let's just all take a deep breath in if you so desire.
And out.
Just landing in the body. Thank you so much for being here with us for this October energy update. So fun. And you can email us at brainwashyourselfpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. And please let us know how you're moving through the energies. Any tips you have, any astrological musings, pretty much anything. We're here to chat. So
review us, rate us, share us with your friends, and we cannot wait to talk to you guys in a couple weeks.